Well, that's pretty fancy stuff we got now.
Yeah.
Nick, I haven't heard from you.
Hello.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Rob.
Oh, God, here it comes. How you doing?
Doing well, how are you?
We're doing it in here.
Okay, okay.
The Board of Finance.
Good.
How come you're wearing your mask?
Because I want to stay healthy.
If I start coughing, I had a cold, not COVID. I was tested, but if I get the coughing fit, I'll put one on.
Actually, I'll sit over here. Trying to keep you healthy. Oh, I don't want to give you anything either. You can't afford to get anything.
I got a mask in my back pocket.
Yeah, keep it with you. Kind of have to judge it by who
I
you're.
get into an area where I don't know who's who.
That's right. Like the grocery store and places like that.
There's some other meeting happening.
In the wetlands.
They're gonna get the next shot as well.
Oh, I did get the booster.
The double booster? Or the second? The first booster or the second booster? Is there a second booster?
Yeah, if you want it. Hey, where's your chair?
I'm hoping it's not gonna be a 3-hour meeting today. So I'm thinking that.
Hey, actually, our meetings have been early. We used to go to midnight when it was Lloyd here.
You meant that.
I do.
Okay, let me keep that. So nobody takes other say it.
I try to be. So Chris forgot to put that on there, that's why
Forgot to put one on.
the,
Oh, is there?
hello.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is this, you're here for inland wetlands?
Was there?
Okay, this is the Board of Finance meeting. I think they might be in that little room over there where it's set up.
Oh.
Tiny room.
Which one?
Check,
Oh.
is anybody, yeah, first
You know
one,
it-
you're right.
Crapped out.
Something right?
Some kind of grits in the middle.
Is there anybody there?
I don't know. Not the whole thing?
Oh,
No,
was
we
it
did.
for a different meeting?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
No, it looked fine.
No,
What
someone
you
else
had.
just came.
But we can,
Oh, I got a name card.
there's been,
You wanna look on it, you want
Whoa.
people to know who you are?
hey Brady.
Mike, is this the same agenda that was on the?
Same one I emailed last Thursday. But I have plenty of this tonight, so if you want it, you can have it. If you have another paper copy, I can give it away. Here you go, Brady. Take that. Is that the one from today? Oh, yeah. Grab that. I assume this paper copy is the one I sent out this afternoon.
Still doesn't have the dates.
We had actuals. We put
Over a
the
year
actuals.
ago. We wanted,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
what have you spent so far?
Matt, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can read this stuff.
Yes, I can hear you, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
He's staying home.
What's that?
Is he staying?
Not reading that stuff. I said, oh, somebody's. Oh, yeah.
Good. How are you? Hello.
Before we get started, is there anything anywhere on these reports about whether the repairs on Oregon Road?
You can ask these guys.
What?
Oregon Road repairs,
Oregon Road.
like paving.
You guys gonna do repairs on that this year?
I don't know. I haven't seen Sid on that.
You mean
Yeah.
pavings? Like
Yes,
pavement?
people putting up the camels up there,
These two.
tore that
These
road up
don't
and beating the bed.
No shit.
Broken parts all over it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it looks like somebody's gone down there with some kind of crushing device.
Yeah, I haven't been down that road
No,
in quite a while.
So,
I'm sure Sid's got a wish list, I just.
I just was
not
off
privy
the
to what
record
it
wondering
is.
whether that is lined up to be repaired or not.
I hadn't heard anything, but it doesn't mean.
I just sit
Okay. I'll bother Chris.
Yeah. Well, you gotta bother Sid actually.
Hey, good, you?
The ladies have got it.
Oh, you want me included with the group now?
Just a little bit. As long as okay, you see okay at the angle? Oh, okay. This is really helpful, having them here. Yeah. Are you representing the town tonight, Mark?
Nope, I just here as moral support. I thought Chris was gonna be here, but.
He usually floats in a half a minute before.
He was taking a 10-minute
Sits
power
over here.
nap.
I think town-wise, I think we did a pretty good job. I don't know what we could do.
How are you coming on the Scotland deal? With the emergency services?
Reincarnated.
How are you coming on emergency services with Scotland or Chaplin, or who you doing?
Oh, I guess it's ongoing. They are having active talks on it. I don't know what the final, it's gonna be some sort of a hybrid thing, but the way I understand it, they'll be their own separate entity. That's the only major expense we got this year.
Yeah, that's a big chunk.
All right, everybody, it's 7 o'clock. Call the regular meeting, we do. Regular meeting of the Canterbury Board of Finance to order. It's, we'll establish our quorum. Oh my goodness, get out of here. We've got Matt Bruno here by Zoom. We've got Rob. We've got me and Jason. We'll ask Brady and Jeanette to sit. We've got 6 here tonight. Hi, Steve.
Oh, sorry.
And let's rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
Sitting here for the sun.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have approval of minutes. I don't know that I saw revisions for the April 13th. Did I see those? We'll get those when we can. I didn't get them by email, but we do have the 20th. So let's look at the 20th, which I did share out to the members.
Do you want me to make?
We still need to get the 13th. Oh, those are the, that's the 13th.
I did it, yeah.
Could we get copies and then we can approve them tonight? With, assuming the edits are, okay? The ones you suggested. Let's look at the 20th while she's getting those copies going.
I have one comment on the 20th.
Yep.
Under establishment of a quorum.
Yep.
I don't like the word protest. After inquiry, I would go with inquiry from Jacob Lake.
Okay, let's have Joy, I don't have a problem with that. Yeah. Replace test with inquiry.
Are you on?
I think, you know, for the board's information, if there's ever a question like that, you can make a point of inquiry, which is literally just asking about the rules. So that's perfectly appropriate. We'll let her know. I hope I don't lose my voice tonight. Hopefully it's a reasonably swift meeting. Thank you for being here, Steve. Let's give Joy a moment back.
Mark, you see Chris lately? How's he feeling? You see Chris lately? How's he feeling?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's been in. I'm surprised he's not here.
I'll speak of
There
that.
he is.
He's still over there.
That's good.
He made the grand entrance.
I said, how's Chris feeling? He goes, oh, why is he not here?
Oh, he's been.
He's down the whole way. I don't know. It took a little power nap or something. Yeah.
Just left the CES a little bit ago. They had the hug ceremony.
Oh, yeah.
Good turnout.
Yeah.
Wow, a lot of
They
people
always, I
there.
think they always have a good one for the hugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pizza and ice cream, seeing all the little kids. So they even had 100 people RSVP.
Wow.
Right? Which is probably like 40 families, maybe
Right.
50, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Still, it's crowded.
Still,
It's
yeah,
nice.
that's a lot.
Nice to see people.
8:35.
Yeah. Well, it's Patty Burns up the wrong one, and stuck a stack of them here. We'll see.
Are you worried these are right?
Yeah.
So would,
Yeah.
so
The most
with all
recent
the-
one has April 21st.
what do you think about all the turmoil with
Okay.
The one we
Not
have
surprised.
tonight, they
Yeah,
revision
not
April
surprised.
22nd.
No. I meant to ask you
Yeah.
this morning. I got in my car and I was like,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted.
We'll get it.
No, they were
Spring.
pushing the date.
Oh,
Like
I
revision.
thought you were
Not
talking
approved.
about the minutes.
Mine
Let's
says 21st, but it's.
look at the 13th first and make sure that one's good. We have one change for the 20th, but let's get the 13th out of the way. Jeanette, since you made the recommendations for modification, can you just assure me those are adjusted?
Yes, they look good.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the revised draft of the April 13th meetings, meeting minutes.
Second.
We'll give Jason a second. All in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Thank you, Matt. All right. And then Jeanette requested a change to the first part of, under establishing quorum, she'd asked that the word protest be replaced with inquiry. The board's fine with that. Can we approve minutes with that edit, or do we need to get a final edit after?
I would make a motion to approve them as corrected.
As corrected. Jeanette has that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Brady, second. Joy, you know what we need? You got it?
No, I was just gonna.
Okay.
Okay, under establishment of quorum, where it says protested, just change it, made inquiry, inquired.
Prompted an inquiry or prompted a,
Prompted
whatever.
inquiry, yeah.
Make it grammatically correct. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 You got it? All right, let's move along. I love keeping up with minutes. Under old business, discuss and finalize budget for public hearing. Public hearing was noticed today. It is next Wednesday. We don't have to have the budget finished for public hearing. but we should have an idea of what our revenues look like, what the total budget numbers look like, what mill rate assumptions we're making and so forth. The day after that public hearing will actually be our opportunity to either make changes to those budgets or to send them along to town meeting. Okay, so what I want to do, let me bring these up in order. The superintendent shared this to me, so you all should have seen this document. And it was a contextual document showing, kind of taking some of what I had researched a little bit further, which was just some references for what boards of education are coming in this year.
It's Casbo.
Was that?
Casbo sent it. It's the Association of Business Managers.
Got it. I don't know that we need any real discussion on that, just.
Well, can I ask what the first column, it says 22, 23 superintendent's budget percentage?
Yeah, typically, superintendents will make an initial proposal to a Board of Ed, and then the Board of Ed will modify the superintendent's proposal, and then the Board of Ed's budget comes to where it is now.
Okay, so that first column really means nothing as to where we are at this point in time?
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that's right. The middle column is the approved from Board of Ed, and then the third column is if it's approved by Board of Finance.
Correct.
We're not yet there, some are. You know, you're seeing reports come through, actual towns already approving their budgets, right? Any questions on this document? Okay. And then I'll go down to, we made some requests of the superintendent regarding the ECS the overage, that 45,000 line, as well as the two other hidden lines on the revenue that we had zeros in. Can you kind of clarify what you meant by what you were saying there?
In terms of the two revenue lines, we'll do the easy ones first.
Can you pull that revenue page up so we can see what we're looking at?
Yeah, one
Thank you,
moment.
Steve.
So Bob Barrett is joining. He's just going to be a floating alternate at the moment.
Oh,
You can't
He's
see
on
him
there?
here, but he's just.
okay.
Bob, you're here, but you're an alternate tonight. Let me find that document,
I was like, who the heck, Natalie doesn't look like.
because that'll give us, oh, here it is. Oh boy. Share Excel. And then on revenue, I've highlighted them. I did what Joy said, which was hide a bunch of columns, which helps. And these are the questions that we want to look at among maybe other things. But this is the special ed line 4110, which we've penciled in 45 grand. We've had it there for a number of years.
So, you know.
And these two, sorry,
Yep, that's
these
okay.
two down here, 4248 and 4249, which we've had zeros.
Right. So the those two bottom lines there, we'll do those first as zeros. At times, students can be placed in a family within the border of Canterbury, for example, like DCF. Like, I'll remove a child from a home in another town, and that child is being supported by a family in Canterbury. If that student has an IEP, and then the sending town can be charged tuition and then the other related services. So for the last 2 years, we've had significant revenue, I think, in that area, like $12,000 to $15,000 last year, and about $30,000 this year. Could be $15,000 next year, but it's not something you budget for or count on, right? So it can happen. So it's an opportunity for the town to have some additional revenue. The other line item there,
Excuse me.
yeah,
So we leave it at zero?
I would, because you
It's
just
been
don't
zeros
know.
for ages.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm just-
yeah, I was just, only because, I mean, potentially, you know, there are families who recently have been accepting students and helping, but they may decide not to do that anymore.
And
And
I was just asking your personal recommendation.
yeah, I would say zero there. But I would also keep in mind that you always look for that kind of things with trends, right? So it's helpful to have a higher sense of confidence. If something else is short, you might likely have some money there, but I would budget as a zero and not count on it. The other line item is miscellaneous, you know, so, you know, we had an upgrade in some new desktops for the office. Our old desktops were $7,000, 7 years old. We could have easily recycled those. Our current operation and maintenance person likes to get every dollar he can out of everything. So there are certain government surplus sites that you can post things and somebody might bid $10 for it, but it's better than throwing it in the trash. So over the last couple of years, I've asked him to go through some of the storage areas that's had antiquated equipment that's no longer useful for the school. I said, before it turns into garbage, please try and surplus it. So he's been doing that over the last couple of years. So that's one of the ways you could get money in that item. But again, it's very miscellaneous. It's more of a line item to hold values coming in, and I wouldn't really consider it a budget line item, but that's the first selectman's discretion, not mine. But if you ask me for my recommendation, keeping it at 0 is fine. The other line item, which is a lot more complicated. I'll give you the very high version. So the state allows for special education costs that exceed a certain value for the town to get reimbursed. Call it excess cost. You might be familiar with that. So the way it's calculated over 4.5 times the value of the per pupil expenditure from the previous fiscal year, right? So in next year, it would be based on the per pupil expenditure of this year that hasn't finished yet, right? So our per pupil expenditure in Canterbury can range between 17.9 as high as 2021, which was 19.4, right? So 19.4 times 4.5 is almost $100,000. So we are anticipating next year a couple students, tuition, transportation, related services, everything combined, totaling, we have 2 students who we think will be eligible for excess cost reimbursement. So currently our projections for next year are probably around $20,000. With that said, 20 to 25. With that said, though, this changes like the wind, right? So we also built into our budget the anticipation of 2 students getting placed next year in the clinical placement. So as we stand today, we only have 2, but that can change, right? We had so much movement this year. When you're budgeting something like that, trend data is better, right, than projections and trying to be too granular in your projections. So if 45,000 has been a number that's used and it hasn't been wildly off, it's probably a good number to continue with. I'd recommend continuing with the 45,000. Particularly next year, if that number does come lower, like if everything works out well, we do anticipate maybe some of the tuition revenue from DCF possibly being there. So overall, those seem like very reasonable revenue projections.
So you're figuring the 45 plus the 2 zeros would probably pretty much balance out around 45.
I think it's a fair guess. Yeah.
Are we good with that, leaving that? Or would anyone like to suggest a change?
All right, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. I'm going to uncolor this. No fill. All right, let's see what we got. Thanks, Steve. We may have other questions. Let me stop this and share again. Preview.
You periodically say in your
Laura, yes. Thank you. All right. We got, before we look at your thing or any changes there, we want to look at, we got a letter from the assessor who noted the impact of motor vehicle and the assessment changes that I did send out. This 1.13 is still like wrong because by my math it's like 3% or something. But what stood out to me is that the assessor is suggesting some pretty drastic cuts to the mill rate, which would really decimate the revenue side. Okay, so I don't know where these, I don't know where 22.5 or 23 even comes from. We can look at whether there's some room around the edges to reduce the mill rate a little bit. But I think we want to look at that amount we're taking from our unreserved, the unassigned fund balance, and try to not make that too big of a number, because if you do that every year, you're going to run out of money, right? So with that being said, I think there appears to have been a pretty big increase on the automotive side.
does the car get assessed at market value every year, the tax, because we do 10 years
Natalie,
out.
do you want to speak to
Yeah,
that?
I'm here in order to represent that, what
Thank you.
Angel wrote. Normally, car values are depreciate every year. There has never been a time that car values have gone up unless it's a special particular kind of car. But because of COVID, the motor vehicle assessments, which are priced individually by the assessor every year, and it's based on the blue book, like motor vehicle by motor vehicle, she goes and prices them. It's based on the blue book or the NADA guide. So there's been this trend, used cars have gone up exponentially a lot. I can't remember what, oh, I have it.
It says 34% over 2 years, 23% in the last year, maybe.
Yeah, but our grand list on vehicles has gone from 48 million to 58 million, 58.9 million, so 10 million increase in 1 year.
So
1,000
10 million.
million
million.
value on the grand list. So if you keep the mill rate the same, people's real estate bills will be the same because it's the same value and the same mill rate as last year, but all of their car bills are going to go up a couple $100, which people are going to be up in arms. Like, my cars are supposed to go down. What do you mean? And Joy and I are the people that the taxpayers see every year. So if you,
And it's all your fault.
if the mill rate isn't lowered to factor that in, I'm hoping that I'm asking for somebody from the Board of Finance to come to the town hall every day during July and answer the question that why isn't it going down? My understanding is there's an additional $500,000 in, that's not the 10% that we have to set aside, which is over a mill. And as the tax collector, and you every year set the percentage of taxes that I have to collect. So I think last year you wanted, this current year, you wanted me to collect 98%, and I think that there could be some wiggle room that you could bump that back up to 98.4 or 98.5 and get some revenue that way, so that you know that I'm collecting, that I collect 102% of what you asked me to. So, because the collection rate does not include the supplemental motor vehicle bill list or delinquent taxes.
All right.
And that's around $128,000 this last year, I think, in additional revenue that I'm getting most of that.
So Natalie's talking about a couple of the remedies, which is to tweak the mill rate and or the percent collection estimate.
Natalie, you're the one, you ladies are on the other side of that thing. What are you comfortable with for your collection rate?
Well, when we look at the revenue sheet, let's talk about that. Let's keep this just to the question of the motor vehicle assessment issue. Because when we pull up the revenue sheet, I do want to look at those the percentage rate.
Oh, those are in there, okay.
Well, we've used 98 for the last couple of years. I think 3 years ago we used 99, and then COVID happened.
Right, and COVID happened, and I asked you to lower it because
we didn't know,
and you lowered it to 90.
Which lops off a couple $100,000 in estimated
wasn't a whole lot of lower.
Right. So let's put a pin in what we do about it for a moment. But what I will say is we don't have any ability to assess or to set a mill rate different on automobiles from real estate.
You can do 2 separate mill rates. However, I wouldn't advise that. My advice would be to consider what Angel has written. Her recommendation would be about a 23 mill rate if you're going to lower it from 23.72 to an even 20.
Well, we'd have to see what it'll do to
revenue. When you do the numbers, and that would give, and at that rate, that would give enough of an offset on the vehicles. Now, Plainfield is running into the same situation, our neighbors to the east, where they actually set their mill rate, and then all of a sudden turned around and looked and said, holy moly, everyone on their cars is going to be paying an extra $75, $85, $95, $100, and it's all well to say we didn't raise the mill rate, your taxes are going to stay the same, but they're not. So this is an adjustment to that mill rate.
And I completely understand it. For a point of history, last year we had a revow, and there were property increases as well as new property construction and ownership and whatnot. And we actually, in our estimates, kept our revenue the same and lowered the mill down to that. And when I got my tax bill, my homeowner's property tax was a couple $100 cheaper. So our
That's
actual,
rare.
our actual, no, remember I
Mine
talked about
wasn't.
this
I got
last year.
51.
Remember I talked about this last year. If your house did not go up by that 17% reval rate, then your real taxes on your real estate went down. I'm not talking about cars.
Yeah, no, and that wasn't the same for
No.
everybody. Some went up, some went down,
No,
some stayed the same.
But what
because-
I'm saying is, our taxes actually went down on property, real estate property last year.
No, they
That is a-
didn't.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did, because we kept our collection rate the same. We kept the actual revenue that we were looking to collect the
Then why did
same.
mine go up?
That's rare, Mike, that happened to you.
Okay.
Because,
Mine
for
went up.
example,
Mine
Melissa,
went up.
Melissa in the land use office, who lives in an average sized house, her
Maybe mine
mortgage
was
company
override
is
stuff.
taking $300 more per month out of her mortgage payment.
Yeah.
So over,
$300 more last year.
yes,
Yeah, but it was all
So,
based on the
it's all
valuation. You got
the value.
lucky. You fell into a sweet spot, so you got lucky, but not everyone was in that
Okay.
same,
most
in
of the
that
people
same
did
boat.
not. And so, and they deal with it, cause they're like, oh, it's a reval, so my values went up, and the mill rate came down a little bit last year, but this is gonna hit people hard if it's not lowered enough, because, you know, if your motor vehicle bill goes up a couple $100, you know, people have more than one car. Most people have more than one car,
Yep.
so we're talking a couple $100 more.
Well, it seems like we should lower it, and we'll look at the revenue sheet and see what we can do.
See how we can do it.
All right. Any other questions on this document? And
So what are they recommending that we drop it to?
well, she says 22.5 or 23, and when I plug those in without tweaking the collection rate, it really, it takes, let's look at what impact that has, okay?
On the revenue.
Yeah,
bill,
I would
how
just
do
like
they-
to just kind of think about like, how are we going forward the year after?
The year after,
And how
exactly.
prices are they gonna come down? We have to sort of factor in like, where are we gonna be in a year?
But Chris, even if we could do multiple different mill rates, it's not the time to do it right now. for this
Yeah, I
budget.
know, well, actually,
And if we wanna do
it doesn't make Natalie happy every time I mention that, but you could actually set a mill rate for vehicles and a mill rate for.
But I don't think we've
housing,
got our
but,
budgeting built around that.
No, we
enough
don't.
To know
We
what
don't.
what we would do with that.
And I also, I'm not trying to be negative, Natalie, but
Oh, come on.
Did you just come up with that?
the Board of Finance is setting aside 10% for the rainy day, right? Or whatever, some kind of crisis happening. And then above that, you have this around $500,000 amount, and year after year after year, we use that to lower the mill rate, to tweak the mill rate, because you can plug that number in. And is it around $400,000? That's a mill, that equals a mill now?
440,
So this year we had, how much, $90,000 that came in for building permit fees because of the solar panel
We actually
thing?
had a very good revenue year this year, and that's reflected in our unassigned, the unassigned
that
fund
was
balance.
not, we don't see that yet. So,
That has to go a year, doesn't it?
yeah, we don't see that.
Not
We see
audited.
previous year's audited amount.
Yeah.
So we don't know what those revenue numbers are.
But-
And we've left out estimated returns to the budget, to the unassigned, right? We left out the
We did.
EDU, which maybe we put those in, and maybe it looks better. But let's not belabor it right now until we get the sheet up, okay? What was the other thing I
The
had?
revenue, we needed to dump sticker clarification.
Well, and literally I have this. Natalie sent me this. She said you spoke to her this morning.
Well, I came in and she says, I got it. I'm like, okay, good.
I can't quite make heads or tails of this.
I can't either.
Other than,
Well-
it looks like it's not as much as what Chris said.
So,
But we put 1,500 in,
Split the
so
loss.
I think we're basically okay. All right, let's see what Natalie's got
so
here.
this, in the first column where it says revenue amount, we started charging for the dump stickers in April 2018. So the first 3 months of rolling out the new stickers got us $27,920. Then we go into the next year, and once we're 1 year in, we start charging only $10, which the parentheses are the footnotes for here, down on here. Then, here's the revenue $8,505 in this, basically the second year of rolling out a new sticker. Then we go into, I'm just trying to follow. Okay, so the next time a new sticker would come out would be April 2020, but we had COVID. We weren't open to the public, we extended the old stickers. So we didn't start selling them until we opened the offices in July of 2020. So these 3 months,
Right.
July, August, September, that revenue, if you put it
It's
down
really the
here, when
previous
we rolled it out, would have been 25,840, which is in line with
Yep.
this first number. And then this column of the second year of the revenue would be 8,585, which is in line with this.
And that's the year we're in, the cycle we're in, that second year, that off year, I think.
We're in the second off year, yeah.
Right.
So right now, we have 2 more months of selling dump stickers. It's probably going to be something like 25 or 27,000. But the next year, it's gonna be around 8,000.
The year we're budgeting for is the lower.
Yeah, you're on the off year, so it'd be the lower end of that.
I mean, we put in 1,500. Are you guys okay moving that up?
Yeah, let's see what we put in there.
We put in 1,500. Let me switch over and we'll take a look at that. Excel. It's highlighted here. I mean, we had 6,500 budgeted the previous for the revenue side, and that's maybe small, apologies. So we put 1,500 in this year because we said, because the March P&L had very low revenue for it, which makes sense.
Right,
Renewals weren't due
right,
yet.
we already have 11,000.
But the bulk of that's gonna come in this fiscal year,
Right,
not this
right.
budget fiscal year, so.
So that's why I did it
Yep.
so many years, so it's trending that it's around 8,000 for the second year.
That makes sense to me now. So we had 6,500, we either go back to that or go up, either way, what do you think? Again, these are small tweaks and small numbers when we look at the 1 mill rate.
They don't even shift the bottom line really.
When we're taking the mill rate down, we'll notice it, right?
Yeah.
So
I go up to the 65 again.
I'm fine with
Seven.
that, 65,
Yeah. I'm fine with
65?
that.
All right, let's do that, all right. Thank you.
Because we're just gonna assume everybody's gonna get their 2-year dump sticker this time around.
Clear this, actually, still, no fill.
And the young lady in that office said that they get 2,000 dump stickers a year.
How many did you say?
I say, but I always say 4,000, and I know I'm wrong, it's we do 2,000 in a 2-year cycle, but.
We ordered 2,000, we sell most of them.
Yeah.
We, at the first year, we ordered 25, I think the first year we ordered 3,000, we didn't sell anywhere near that. So then we got 2,500 and now we're just getting 2,000.
For the 2 years, and she said that they don't go necessarily through all, and some of them are just given, I got a new car, so they give you a new sticker.
They give a replacement.
Yeah.
You get a replacement, and then it
And I
gets
did-
$10 after the first year, and on and
I
on
did
and on.
put the numbers for that, we do keep track of how many basically we're giving for free. If you've already paid $20 for a dump sticker and you smashed your car, we don't make you pay $20 for another 2-year sticker. We are very generous.
All right.
I tried.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I think our, sort of this side, what we could plug in here is good for now. Let's look at the expense sheet, which shows this is really tiny, I'm gonna make it a little bigger if I can. This shows on proposed, this is the number.
Okay, did you readjust the town government one again?
I did, Chris's number went down a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, it was that low SIP adjustment, so it was 330.
1,400?
3134835.
835?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a $1,500, $1,400.
And I've adjusted it here. Capital improvement and education budget total is 15,608,601. Total revenue, which we'll look at in a moment, 15 plus. So this is the negative 569,705, right?
So
And then-
what's the total revenue from that other sheet?
Yeah, we'll flip over to that in a moment. But Natalie, to your point, even after using that, the net fund balance above 10% is 559. Okay, so there's still money to draw on to pay down the mill, even in our current assumptions. But then I do worry about the next year, the next year, the
But you
next year.
have $99,000 additional appropriation, I thought we were leaving everything out.
Well, we put in our approach is to be the most conservative, most cautious. So we put in the additional appropriations, but did not put in the.
Oh, I'm sorry, the additional
expected-
appropriations,
Right.
I'm sorry, I was thinking returns.
This is
Sorry.
the 99,000 that we've done, the 3 or 4 additional appropriations that we've done during this cycle.
Okay, I took the wrong one.
Whether we want to put in Steve's estimate, and Chris, if you can give us an estimate.
Yeah, I actually
Today.
have one if you wanna plug it in, it's not gonna,
How about we hold on it,
yeah.
and if we need it, but let's look at the tax sheet, the tax side. All right. We're not gonna fiddle with the grand list, okay? But what we can do is we can adjust, I'm gonna make this a little bigger.
Oh, that's much better.
Although you can't see all the columns, but maybe I can shrink some of these, I could probably just hide them. But, collection rate and mill rate, okay? So if we put in 23, watch property tax, it's 10.2 million, 300 grand. Now, we
Okay,
probably,
300, okay.
probably could support that on the expense side,
Could you,
but now we're using 880,000 from the unassigned, which leaves us 248 over.
okay, but can you go back to that other sheet?
Right.
Now, Natalie, you were saying 98% collection rate, we could go up on that? And you feel comfortable with what?
Anything between 98 and 99.
So if we did 98.5,
Well, you're
It's-
not gonna be held
We'll
to
split the
it, but you
difference.
know historically how you're doing.
Right, so it's a very complicated thing because when I am calculating how much I've really collected, it's all of the grand list, the tax levy based on the grand list, plus the supplemental grand list. You are not budgeting, you are not basing your budget that includes the supplemental grand list. So that always is extra revenue. And it falls within the 1% range. Plus you're also not budgeting for any delinquent taxes that I collect. So there is, so and at my desk, I'm like, I really want to get 99% of actually the real amount that doesn't include any delinquent taxes. So I'm always striving for that. I always way over collect what you have asked me to collect.
I've seen like 102%.
102%,
Right.
Yeah, but that's including the supplemental and the delinquent.
Right, so
So
if you base the budget
But
on
no,
90.
we don't, but
We
it
don't.
comes in on that line.
Right.
So it comes as an over collection.
If you start out by saying, we're going to base this budget on 98.5, I mean, you could fiddle around with the numbers and see what it looks like.
What did I have here?
I mean, if you put,
There's 98.5. It's doing some weird rounding. What did it do to our number? Let me pull it
Hit
up.
enter.
So it gets you, so 991 to 99, so 50 grand. So a percent on that's about 100 grand at 23.
All right, so what does that do to us on the side, leaving us with what? Let's switch back to 9, okay, left it to 99.
Well, it's, I gotta change the, let me, what is it? Command 1,
Self-formatted.
do this thing, okay. And then over here, we're using 829 and leaving about 300,000.
Okay, now, if we're leaving 300 in there, and that brings us to a better tax rate on cars, does this help the cars? Yes, because we went down on the mill.
Yeah, I mean, it helps
Yeah, it
these
doesn't
guys when
help.
they're collecting.
It doesn't help with the cars, it just helps
Just love it.
people
Just
save money overall, so that the car.
Right, so the car hit
Put
is
it
drastic
in
because the
Okay.
property came down.
Right.
Okay. So if we have 300 in there,
Yeah,
Steve, what do you anticipate returning this year, ballpark? In a best case scenario?
400,000, not counting contribution to the non-lapse income.
That's a good idea, even though it's not for sure. That's a separate thing, but we shouldn't
Right.
include it in our return.
So you could say
We don't,
you
we
could
don't
say-
process it here, but we need to mentally know that there is more.
280 to, yeah.
Okay,
Taking out any potential NLA additions, what number would you say?
If you take out the NLA,
take out. any-
So 1% of our $12 million budget, we're just shy of 12 million, is 120,000. So
So it'll be 400 minus 120.
280 grand.
280, should be about,
And what
should
do
be
you,
between 250 and
So we'll
280.
do 250 just for now.
okay, and Chris, what
That's
do
the
you
wrong line.
anticipate?
Oh, this is gonna really rock your world, $36,000.
Thousands or?
Yeah, $36, yeah. Oh, my, yeah, 36 cents. Yeah, 36,000, yeah, that's good, yeah.
We didn't have those numbers in there, I wouldn't be comfortable at all.
I mean,
Not near the back.
You don't, you can't build a budget
me to work here.
in a taxing based on what you think might come in. But it's an awareness that you have to know that you're comfortable within a safe parameter. We also have the 10%,
well, right.
you know, that we could always go down below.
Yeah, because we don't bond, and so it's
Right.
nice to have a cushion, but we also don't need to worry about bonding
Okay,
because we
you were
haven't
talking
bonded
to-
in years.
You mentioned in passing that this roof, the building's 20 years old.
Yep.
And now that we paid it off, we're gonna have to do things to it.
Oh, yeah.
So would you be bonding a roof?
No, if we had to I would put a roof through on CIP. To replace this roof would be shy of under $100,000, probably about 90-odd thousand. So you would run that through CIP, and next year I'm actually gonna start saving up money for that.
Okay, all right, so it's not something you're gonna go bond on?
No, it's too small, you wouldn't.
So what would it be if we went back and reduced it even more, that mill rate?
So here's my concern. I mean, we can certainly look at that, but my concern is what happens next year, right? Because if we're pulling 829,000 from that and we have an expected of 585, we're negative. We're inside the 10% next year, right? So
Yeah, but
that's,
next year doesn't mean you have to, because pull that much again.
I mean, exactly.
And then factor in the revenue that's not reflected in the calculus for the unassigned fund balance, because we've had a good revenue year this year. We'll bring it,
Got it,
bring
because
it
we've
up.
not seen what
Yeah.
this revenue this year.
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, personally, I think this is about as low as we should go. So, but what was the other number, 23,
Because they were recommending.
22.5?
Yeah, she's recommending 22.5 or 23.
I mean, that takes our actual revenue collection estimates below last year. And this is what I meant by last year, we're trying to keep our revenue collection equal, right? That's not sustainable, right? When costs are going up, when your budget's going up a good bit, your budget's going up 1.5% and so forth, right? The revenue side should also go up about the same amount as our expenses each year. And if we're not doing that, then we're gonna be digging ourselves in a hole. I mean, 23 is a big drop in a non-reeval year. I mean, here's.
What happens when you put in 99%? To the 20?
That's another 50,000 on top of that, because each 1% is equivalent to about 100,000.
I think we used to use 99%
Yeah.
as our number 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
You did.
That probably makes us about whole. And to be honest, these two numbers being closer, the fund balance used and the fund balance remaining, being closer makes me feel more comfortable about next year and not coming out here and looking to bump the mill rate because we've dug a hole.
Okay, then my question would be, we're not the one collecting taxes. Natalie, are you feel comfortable with 99% being in there?
Yeah,
Well, that's the truth, yeah, that'd be the truth.
I collect,
So you're very confident
Yeah,
that, okay.
Ruthless.
We did 98% because we thought things were gonna,
right, with
Just,
COVID.
yeah.
Great thought, yeah.
Well, no, you
99.
didn't do 98%, you did 98.4. I was like having a heart attack,
Right.
like, okay, people are losing their jobs and no one's going to work and everybody's sitting at
Right.
home and you think I'm gonna collect that much money? I was thinking maybe 96 or 97%, but it didn't pan out the way we thought.
Right.
So,
Right, we actually survived COVID as a municipality in pretty good shape.
well, and I'm actually gonna run through the draft budget prezo after this, and you'll see the ECS funding, which is slated to theoretically, they go back to the reductions next year. But the state's sitting on like $7 billion or something right now. So, if they hit us with another reduction next year, it'd be really, really disappointing.
Well, if we're going down basically 0.75%. That helps the car tax issue side of things.
Yeah, it does. That's a 3% reduction on the mill rate, a 1.1 mil, 3%, which is a $440,000.
And essentially, with the increase in the grand list at $10 million, reducing the mill rate, you're gonna collect, you'll have a bit of equilibrium there.
You mean the solar?
No,
No,
because
Oh, the
the
auto.
grand list went up 10 million on the vehicle, so if you lower, because the amount you're collecting on is that much higher, so you can lower your mill rate and collect
True.
the same.
You can even go lower, Chris.
No, when I talked to Angel today, I said, well, what do you think is a good number? Because that question will come up tonight. And she looked at some math, did some math in her head and put her assessor's cap on and said 23
Nice even number.
yeah, she actually said it's big, yes, 23 is a good number to work with. That should provide the relief to people that have seen their assessments increase. That should be enough to provide that, significant relief, so they won't be damaged with that increase in valuation.
Well, I would feel comfortable with 23 if that's the input from our assessor, whose domain
Seems like
it is. And Natalie's domain is the
98,
collection rate, and if
99.
she's comfortable with that, then
And that was my concern when I plugged it in without adjusting the 98. Yeah,
but again, when you go back to that revenue,
which side do you want to look at? This
no,
one?
I'm sorry, the other one, the one you were just on.
This one.
If you take out that 36 and 250, 275.
This and this, then we're at 3, which is, you know what, historically still fairly healthy. It's just, you look at that next year and you wonder, you can't do it again, right?
Right, but we'll also be having the.
But by next year though, it's sort of like
What do we have here?
a boa constrictor digesting a pig. So it'll move its way through, but, once we.
Okay, if these, whatever we
Nice
decide tonight is what we'll present
Good vision.
next week.
Right.
So I don't want to leave it in here if we're not gonna use it as a part of the rationale for this. So we want to go through each of these sheets, make sure that these are the numbers we want to present.
I would say for your presentation, you take out the 36 and the 250. Because that's just the behind your ears, you kind of remember that something's coming in, but it's not etched in stone. I mean, the school can have, 16 special ed kids come in and that money's gone. Chris can have something break and then it's, a generator goes and we've lost that
Yep.
money.
The unknowns are.
I mean, I'm okay leaving it off the sheet if we have it in mind,
Yes,
but it makes the sheet look scary now. Like, in terms of next year, if you have 340 to work with and you're pulling 700, next year you're not gonna be able to do that. But if we have a decent revenue year, and 1% growth on the mill rate, we
well,
should.
the other side to this is to ask them to reduce their budgets.
That's true. This year, this year's budgets, at least on the ADU side, seem pretty reasonable. I've got in my presentation, the budget drivers is the full-time EMT. I don't know how you would argue against a full-time EMT. We had the accident over here. We had a dirt bike accident over on, what is it, Gooseneck or whatever?
Bates.
Those types of things happen, and I think we should be doing this, and it's long overdue. The one that stands out to me is CIP has quite a big jump this year from whatever it was. We'll see it in the sheet.
Yeah, that was all predicated mainly on the, trying to beat the firehouse demands for, a request for new equipment
And a
funding.
bus. So, yes, that is true, and maybe that's a question we need to ask next year, in my opinion. But, the board can do what the board wants. Tonight is not necessarily the night to do that. It would be after the public hearing. It would be the day
Okay.
after the public hearing. You could do it, anyone can do it at any time.
Well, that would be adjusting the figures that we present. Right.
Exactly. And the public hearing, there's no final budget at the public hearing, right? It's our worksheets that we're talking about. and the
As far
budgets.
as the town budget, I agree, the town has been not getting anything for years and years and years, and they've been giving back, and predating Steve, they were actually supplementing with their give backs to what the school was taking on their come get more money situations. And I feel that the EMT, though it's a big budget item, it's a town thing. And it's something that we should be looking at as a town that's growing, to have that. So I feel that this is the year the town should be getting their asks. And maybe it's time for the school to give a bit, not ask in the same year, kind of thing. And then, as far as the CIP, that there might be something there. I have a hard time with the town budget, if you have the library and the rec department sitting with buku bucks in PRE money that's not being used.
Well, I guarantee you, in short order, when rec starts to put in their new basketball and tennis courts at Manship, that money's gonna disappear. I have had repeated conversations with members of the library board and the library directors about the same issue. Unfortunately, they, by state statute, they run their own show. And so I can recommend, I can cajole, I can wheedle. Mark, John, and I sat down, and actually I let Mark and John duke it out over their request for funding this year, and I sat back and watched, and they requested X, and Mark and John worked their way through that process and came up with a figure much lower than X in what they were requesting for their overall funding, and so we tried.
But they're still within your budget, your say as to how much. They get the money, they get to use it how they choose within their budget. It's still your budget. It's not tapping the PRE money that was 15 grand a year to help run library situation. And it's not being used. And you have 15 for rec that was given to run recreational function, and it's not being used.
Yeah, well, actually, rec, we beat rec up big time last year.
You did last
And
year, but I don't understand why you're still getting another 15 grand. Why aren't you doing it again this year?
Well, because they've actually been responsive, and their rec committee is meeting and accomplishing things. So they've done the Campbell Fields, they redid those. We got a steep grant to do the new tennis court and basketball court at Manship. They've actually started to do things.
All right, so those are grants. You're just telling me that's PRE money. That's a grant.
No, the steep grant pays for part of the basketball court and the tennis court, not the whole thing. The PRE money is going to be the offset for that. The PRE money was spent to do the Campbell Drive fields over. So they've been responsive. They've actually come back to the plate, and that rec committee has been meeting, and they've been moving forward on projects, so I'm quite happy with that.
So why can't you still tell them that we're gonna take $5,000 of PRE money and your budget lines go down 5?
They don't have the money to do that. We have to put up our match for the basketball court and tennis court. And that's gonna eat up
Well, that's
the
what you did
PRE
with the
money.
park too. That's what you did with the park, and you did it in kind services. That's how that park was built. You didn't pay anything, you just simply, I donate my time, and you log your time, and you got your credit.
That's all well and good, but the folks that put in the bids to put in the basketball court.
Oh, I know, I'm not saying that's how it's done.
That's.
But it's a matching grant then.
We have to contribute 25% of about 150,000, but 150,000 won't get it done. So their money is gonna be long gone by the time that.
And when is this set to happen?
Hopefully, we'll start construction this year.
I still think that some of the PRE money should be reallocated just to run the basic thing. That's my one hard nut with your budget. That we're not utilizing, I mean, $134,000 for library sitting on. Yet they're asking each year, they keep going up on their budget. There's no offset to the PRE money.
All right, Jeanette, let's bring it back to the item, which is to approve the sheet for the public hearing. Let's just go through our assumptions, and if there's disagreement, we'll figure that out, and then let's
Have you cross-checked these numbers?
I want to cross-check as we're looking.
I can leave.
I believe we're good. Thank you, Natalie, appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you, Natalie.
Big 40 sheet, it's gonna rain tomorrow, and high pressure system.
3134835.
Well, let's just look at our grand list of 439,799,806. Mill rate of 23, these are assumptions at this point. One moment, just to confirm your EDU budget. Do you have the number? 99% collection rate. We're good on this side? Okay. On the expense side, the town budget 3,134,835.
3,134,835.
CIP of 487,499. Does somebody have that? And then Steve, 11,986,276. Can you confirm we've got those numbers in properly? I'll look the CIP here.
CIP is 487,490.
487,499.
And
Too many folders. Oh, here it is. Actually, I'll just leave up the Excel. 1,198,6,276. That's what we've got here. So these are sums of 15,608,601. Total revenue is 14,829,728.
did that corrected revenue come over from the other sheet?
Yeah, it's on this revenue sheet, which is the tax plus the intergovernmental revenue that we've adjusted, plus the total local revenue.
I'm saying it totaled over, okay.
14,829,728. 14,829,728. There's a deficit of this amount, which we'll take from the unassigned fund balance. We've got an audited reserve of 2.788711.
So essentially, we're still keeping that
349.
over that reserve of 10%.
That's the amount over the 10%. The 10% is a symbolic, but useful number for cash flow.
So we're still 10 grand over.
What's that?
We're still leaving 10 grand over that.
We're leaving
Fund
349,000 over.
So 349,000 over the 10%.
That's over the 1.5.
So this is the 10% that we're holding.
Oh, okay.
That's the amount over it. So
Okay.
these two numbers
I
total
was
is
looking
the.
too high.
So that puts you in a good position, even thinking about next year, you've built in a fairly significant,
That's pretty good. I'm gonna need it. Yeah, that's.
And we didn't increase our revenue. I mean, just to the point, this year, but also in this budget, we haven't bumped our revenues much. You know, these permit revenues and these other things.
so
that
that's
have
10%, and
gone up.
349, that's about another 5% on that, so it puts you about 15% if you add it all up, I think.
Right. Right. So, I'm gonna make a motion to present this at the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who's that, Jason?
Second.
Jason, okay.
All right, we've got. Oh, first.
And we're good, Steve, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Steve.
Good night, folks.
Will you be here at the public hearing
What day is that?
next Wednesday?
Weekend.
Thank you.
Wednesday.
Discussion?
I think it worked hard to get there.
Okay. All right. Any further? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Matt. I will send out the final that we've worked on to you guys
This sheet?
as an Excel sheet. Yep. I do have, let me see what I've got, because we have one more item under new business, which is the draft presentation. Let me bring that up. And I'll just run through this. Is similar to what we did last year. It'll require adjustments because what I put in was based on previous week's stuff. Let me find it. Here. Budget presentation. Draft. Share. Keynote. All right. Fiscal year 23 draft. We've talked about our objectives. Let's scan these. budget focus, et cetera. These have been similar from previous years. Timeline is where we are. We'll be on May 4th. We'll look at the May 5th, which is the Thursday after. We have another meeting to act on the public hearing and to make adjustments if necessary, and to, if possible, send that to town meeting. We have another meeting held in there on, I think, May 11th, if necessary. If we're done with our work on the 5th, we won't need the 11th. And then we'll convene on the 24th evening to set mill rate and bill dates based on the results of the referendum.
Can you kind of make sure ahead of time who's gonna come down for that meeting?
Which one?
The one after the budget vote,
Set the mill rate?
set the mill rate.
We had those 4 we had last time to do it. What are you concerned about?
My concern was last year you were
I had to call
calling me
you in.
frantically saying, do it on the
Right.
phone. I'm like,
That's
all
right, that's right. It's the
Just know
8:30.
ahead of time who's
I
gonna be
mean,
there.
we've got a full board with a full set of alternates, so hopefully we don't have trouble this year. But yeah, we were calling Jeanette last year to get that.
And it's easy, you can set up through Zoom as well, so.
It'll be
folks
on
can-
Zoom as well.
Yeah, I'll be here. They can remote in if need be.
And assuming it passes, we'll work through it. So this is the budget bottom line. EDU actually went down, because if you look, actually I pulled out the pie chart from last year, but EDU was like 78%, not 77%. It's just a growth in some of these other lines. Here's your budget comparisons. Town government's up 10%, CIP up 34%, EDU up 1.5%, total is 4%. And these numbers are from the previous, well, these are updated based on the latest budgets, but the revenue side, these are gonna be old revenue numbers. When we look at them, I gotta put in there. Key budget drivers, the town budget is adding a full-time EMT, the CIP is fire rescue equipment and school bus. EDU is restoring funding to student athletic programs, adding a social worker and world history and world language, with 50% ESSER going for that social worker. How do we pay? 68% taxes, intergovernmental revenues 30%, local revenues 2%. So, you know, we're looking at copier fees. It's a very small slice of these things, right? The bulk of this is taxes. And in intergovernmental revenue, is it updating? Oh, wait. So in intergovernmental, oh, sorry. I forgot what I did here. The intergovernmental revenue sliced 27%. A big chunk of intergovernmental is ECS, right? So the town aid road and LoSIP, pilot, whatever, is 3% of the rest of that, right? And ECS history, this is the stuff that used to give us nightmares. Now, for the last 3 years, it's been constant. I'm wondering what's gonna happen next year, but I'm hopeful with state revenues swelling that they'll refactor this and won't hatchet us. But if you look at this, the trend going back, what is this, 6 or 7 years, is $500,000 in cuts, or $700,000 in cuts, right? So it's been pretty dramatic, especially fiscal year 18. So I think,
But
you know,
those are monies that we've absorbed.
absolutely, we've had to make that up. As our budgets, as EDU budgets are going up and ECS is going down, we're having to meet both, absolutely. So hopefully, this is cross our fingers, that it doesn't,
They'll decrease.
right? Grand list year on year, 425 million to 439 million, a 3.39% increase. As Chris was pointing out, 10 million of that is cars, so 5 million is property, basically. I'll adjust this if we need to, although this sheet, this one looks accurate. This will need adjustment, right? Because those taxes, that's gonna change. But we can see that most of our revenue is taxes, intergovernmental revenue and so forth, and then we look at the revenue comparison. I'm just going quickly, but stop me
I
if you have a
understand
question.
the taxes, interest, and liens.
That's right.
We didn't factor in interest and liens.
There was a line under it. Let me just pull it up. That's been there for ages. It's $40,000 for interest and liens. It's in the budget. I forget what the number was, but it was higher than that on the P&L. I have a slide that shows that. It's $40,000. It's on the second line of the spreadsheet.
On the revenue sheet?
Yeah, underneath property tax, then interest and liens, right under it. So again, these figures are gonna change because we've made adjustments, but, the previous numbers, the taxes, liens were up 3%, local revenue up 8%, primarily because I think we upped the, PRE number that didn't seem to have been updated in a while. And then intergovernmental revenue is down a bit, very small amount, I don't know, and our total revenue's, up about 2.38. It'll be different once I factor in the changes. So this is the 40,000. So the property tax is that number, plus the interest and liens is the total number that we're using as property tax.
Okay, but we weren't, does that get accounted for on the revenue sheet?
Yes, yes.
Because Natalie said that money doesn't come into,
Well, it's been a
it's like
separate,
out there money.
yeah, it's been a separate line in the, let me just show you the, I'm not trying to hide anything here. It's this line right here. 40,000, it's been 40,000 for a number of years.
Okay. And that doesn't factor in the earthquake, and we didn't account for it.
No.
In a 98%
No.
tax collection, okay.
All right, keeping going. So then we look at property tax, and I did this last year. It was really important for a reeval year, and these will change because we got a different mill rate. But if you say we're gonna get 100%, this is our ideal collection. But of course, we don't do that. We factor in a percent collection. So this is 98%. So if you look at the 100% versus the 98%, you have to raise the mill rate to make up those scofflaws who aren't paying. With 99%, it'll be a smaller difference, right? But we'll still see that.
I want you to be careful of getting too
technical.
Too much in there.
Sure. Yeah, and I may take these out.
Presentation, yeah,
Yep.
because going like, well, this is 100%, but we don't get 100%,
I-
we get 98.
I
You know,
could
we're
take
just
these out.
saying we figure 98% and just do the one slide.
I could just take that out.
Yeah, you don't want to get too confusing to people.
But then I did look at, and this is a new slide from last year, I did look at our neighbors, towns around us, a couple towns away. You know, Norwich is not really like us, but they're close by. We're on the low side, and after the decrease this year, I don't know what these other towns are doing. That's why that third column is blank for them. You know, so I think that we're doing pretty good. We've got a pretty efficient local budget, you know, and a pretty good process. So this is just to keep it in mind. These with the asterisk, by the way, they're often have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or sometimes 6 additional mill based on special property tax districts, fire districts, special service districts. So this is the base mill for the whole town. So those numbers go even up from there. So gives you a sense of where we are relative to our neighbors.
Well, actually, when you plug in the 23, then you're gonna fix that number too.
This will be 23.
But it's a matter of, the 26 and the 23 is kind of a convoluted one, because that's reeval, that's essentially a 0.
Well, you see that with others. You know, any of these where the number goes down, probably reeval. Anywhere they are, see, this one's basically the same, but a little up, not a reeval year. So what is, I think, remarkable is going down in a non-reeval year, right? So when we start collecting this data, you know, that's pretty remarkable to go down 2 years in a row.
Well, you didn't go down. The 26.4 equal 23.72 in the new reval. That was a 0 year.
I'm talking about the mill rate.
Right. The 26.4 pre-eval, then we had the eval, and dollar to dollar, the adjusted went to 23.72. That was that was equal, because you adjusted for the reevaluation.
Yeah.
Didn't go
No,
down.
that's the easy year. The hard year is that second year. 2 years in a row is hard. That's what I'm
But we
saying.
didn't go down the first year.
We'll agree to disagree.
We stayed flat.
All right. And then we look at this number is going to change because we've got expenses and revenue and that amount there. And I talk about unassigned fund balance. You know, and then I go to the expense revenue sheet, and this sheet is the old sheet. So that's the presentation.
Can you send that out to us?
I don't know when I'll finish, when I'll have the final edits, but I can certainly get you something when I do. ahead of the meeting.
Good, next Monday.
Yeah,
Not tonight.
yeah, I can send it out beforehand, I just, what needed to get out, what was the other thing?
The revenue sheet.
The revenue sheet I'll send out right, I can send out right away, I can send that one out sooner, okay. All right. I take your point, and even last year, I think I had more in there, and we were taking out some details, some
Yeah.
extra stuff.
I just think if you, it all makes sense to you sitting there,
Right.
but if it gets too heavy when you're talking to.
Well, I think last year we didn't have very many people. Kind of talking to ourselves a little bit, but that's all right. Okay. Any other questions on this?
No.
Okay, good. Let me stop and let me go back to the agenda. I think we're getting close here. Public comment, Zoom chat. Any public want to comment? I'll check the chat. Don't see any. Anybody on Zoom want to speak? You guys? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Give it to Brady. We'll give Jen, you want the second? And that's seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. See
Thank you,
next
everybody.
week. 2 meetings next week, Wednesday and Thursday. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.